One of the biggest myths in container home construction is related to budgeting. I see it all the time. I talk to dozens and dozens of people looking to build their own container home every single week. And this is something you don't want to get wrong. People oftentimes overly underestimate or even overly overestimate their build costs on their container homes. And I don't want you making that mistake. So let's dive right in. Now you do want to stay till the very end of this video where we have some free stuff that's going to help you out with budgeting, but I want to kick us off at the top. And that is this, that your budget and your design are directly connected. The single thing that's going to make the biggest impact on your cost is of course the size of your home. And one way that most people will estimate construction costs is by square footage, right? So if you're doing a 20-foot container home conversion, that's 160 square feet. A 40-footer is 320 square feet. If you're combining three 40-footers, that's 960 square feet. So it's effective to come up with a per square foot estimate of your construction cost that can help you navigate what size home you are going to be building. Now, the thing that impacts this greatly is your location. Typically in an area where there's really low building regulation, it's going to mean your building costs are going to be a lot lower. This is usually areas that are more rural, not in major cities, and in states where they're just more relaxed related to construction. However, if you're in an area with high regulation, you're in a major city, there's a lot of building and safety standards that need to be met and a lot of inspections that have to be gone through, that will increase your cost as well. So I want to give you an example of the spectrum of costs because you always see online people talking about how container homes are so cheap. And in some instances, that is actually correct. So sometimes people are saying this and they don't mean to give you wrong information, but they just don't understand that in other areas, it will be more expensive to build. So for example, the very first container home that I built for an area with little to no regulation. There wasn't a lot of hoops that I had to jump through. And I literally built that with my own hands with some help from family members and a couple friends. And my material costs all in on that and my labor costs was only $13,000, which sounds insane to me. This was 2017 where things were a little bit cheaper. So maybe comparatively nowadays, you could do that for say $17,000, but it was a beautiful luxury 20-foot container home. Now, like I said, that was in an area with really low regulation. If you're going into an area with higher regulation, I want to break down some of the additional costs that you're going to need to consider when you're trying to determine your budget for your container home. So a good example of an area with higher regulation is California. In California, there's high building and safety standards. That means that there's a lot of hoops that you need to jump through to make sure that what you're building is proper and in alignment with what the state wants. They have a lot of inspections that you're also going to need to pass, and they're going to make sure that what you're building matches what they want you to be building. With that said, one of the very first things that you're going to want to be aware of if you're building in somewhere like a California is the additional insulation that may be required. You know, that very first build that I did, I had R14 insulation in the walls and ceiling. I didn't have any insulation on the underside of the container. And for where it was going, it worked out just fine. However, once you're in an area like California where they're going to have higher regulations, they likely are going to want you to have R35 on your flooring, R21 in your walls, and maybe something like R39 in your ceiling. Now, if you're using spray foam insulation, you're going to need to get quotes for that to truly understand how that affects your budget. You know, for us, typically with insulation, our cost is around $2 per board foot. Now, a board foot is 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch depth of insulation. So there's a lot of math you have to do there. We have formulas for how you can do that, and watch that free resource at the end because it's going to get into that information where you can access that. But what I would say is you need to get quotes to figure out how that's going to impact your costs, right? Insulation is really one of the bigger ones. Another one is structural. You know, in some of these areas with low regulation, you may not even need to get an engineer involved, or maybe you do, but there's not a lot of natural disasters in that region, and you can do a pretty simple build out. In other areas though, especially once you start getting creative with your build and maybe you're interconnecting containers, you're cantilevering containers, stacking containers, these are all things that are going to drive up your structural reinforcement costs. So you're going to need a budget for that. You're going to have to do more modifications. You're going to need more steel, heavier duty steel, more time from your engineer. all of these will be things that can increase your cost. A few other things to note, and work with me here, stay along, we're almost there. If you're in California, you need to consider solar. If you're building new construction, it's likely that they're going to require you to have solar. You also need to consider adding fire sprinklers into your unit. In a lot of areas, even here in Nevada, new construction, more often than not, you need to add fire sprinklers. And lastly, in different regions of the US, you may need upgraded doors and windows. In some areas, they're going to want you to have very fire resistant or even fireproof type doors and windows. In other areas, you may need glass in all of your doors and windows that can withstand hurricanes. These are things that will drive up your costs and that you want to budget for accordingly. Now, I want to give you some important hacks on how to lower your costs. We talked a little bit about different things you need to account for as you're budgeting, but let me help you out here. We've done, over 150 container homes. We've probably spent over $3 million or something on materials. So we've gone through the ringer on purchasing things the right way and purchasing things the wrong way. Now, the wrong way to do this is as you're building your home, you're doing a Home Depot run every day or every other day or every week, and you're buying materials for retail. Do not do that. Even as an individual that's building, you can get big discounts on your materials from these big box stores if you do it properly. Now, I want to use this project that we're currently working on as an example. I'm inside a container right now. Maybe you've seen some of our previous videos about it, but we're currently working on the largest container home community here in the United States. And with that, we're gonna have to order a ton of materials. So if you are working with big box stores, that's probably the simplest thing to do, but here's a strategy that you're gonna wanna implement. You're gonna wanna get a quote for all of your materials for your project. Not just your lumber, not just your drywall, not just for your flooring. You wanna quote for all of it from Lowe's. Then you wanna get that same quote if you're in an area where there's a Home Depot, and then you want them to battle it out for your business. I'm telling you, it'll blow you away how much that price will actually drop. So for this unit in particular that I'm inside of, there's a lot of materials that we needed to order from Lowe's or Home Depot right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so what we did is we went to bat getting the best pricing that we could, and our pricing that we're getting is 30% below retail. So that means on these units, if we're about to spend $50,000 on material retail cost, by competitively having Lowe's and Home Depot both quote something and being able to have them work on their pricing for you and us ordering it in bulk, it's allowing us to save about $15,000. Now, one more fun little hack that we do on top of this is when it comes to paying for these materials, we're using a credit card with really good benefits. And Lowe's and Home Depot will not penalize you for that. They're not gonna add an additional 3% fee. So by us purchasing these materials of say $35,000 in materials with an amazing credit card, we're now getting say 250,000 points that can go towards travel, can go towards vacations, all kinds of awesome stuff for you and even maybe your family. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a free gift for you, and it is our free container home training. Now, in this video, I shared with you how we can save 30% on materials. You're not gonna wanna miss checking out that training, where we're also gonna teach you how we save 30% on our build time. That means we're able to get a container at this stage that you see me in right now, almost overnight and with very little effort. So all of that we go over in that training. Make sure you check it out. It's linked in the description below, and I'll see you on the next video.